Good afternoon, New Zealand and the world. Lucas Lawman's Kiwi Voice here with my mate, the Spider Plant, to give you a bit of a roundup of mainstream and alt news over the last couple of days. Just a few headlines I thought were interesting and worth commentating on. So if you're new here, by all means, hit that like button, comment down below. I try and engage with our community here on Kiwi Voice as much as I possibly can. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button if you have not already yet. Also like, share the links. Any of those actions, they might not seem like much, but they really truly do help the channel grow. So let's get into it. I'm looking forward to having a yarn with you guys about this stuff. And speaking of stuff, we've kicked it off with New Zealand's most read mainstream news media outlet or website. And the headline that I've picked up on there, Nationals Luxon unwittingly meets anti-vaccine mandate protester. So this was quite an interesting one. Chris Luxon and Chris Bishop met with Lance Goodman of Goodman Contractors, who supported the Wellington protest, the 23-day occupation protest there, by helping with food prep and also spending some time at the protest as a camper as well. Now, while we can ignore the usual sort of style of writing whereby they litter the article with persistent references to the violence, to the negativity around the protester side of things, and other disputed statements, there were facts in there. It was interesting to read Bishop's statement where he said what they do in their own time is up to them, which is an absolutely fair enough statement. After being told who they were, though, Luxon commented, basically, the problem is that these guys are doing a great business. So the problem is that they're doing great business. So they are doing a great job building critical infrastructures in this region, which desperately needs it. And we're talking about the Hawke's Bay there. Now, Lance, the man himself, the business owner, he stated, I have had a good meeting with Chris Luxon today, but I'm not sure that all the politicians are there to serve us, he said. Succinct. So quite an interesting article with a bit of to and fro, but like I say, you do have to look past some of that typical sort of disparaging comments towards one particular group of people that stuff seems so fond of. Further through in world news, we've taken a look at what appears to be quite an interesting developing situation, well, at least from where I sit. China is to sign the first Pacific security deal, which will give them warships just under 2,000 kilometres from Australia's doorstep. So this is going to be in the Solomon Islands. The deal was between China and the Solomon Islands. The agreement will give China the power to use its military to protect the safety of Chinese personnel and major projects in the Solomon Islands, and give Beijing a base for its navy less than 2,000 kilometres off Australia's coast. They have tried this sort of thing in the past with other Pacific partners and haven't really got anywhere, and the Solomon Islands are agreeing to move forward with such an arrangement. Anna Powles, a senior lecturer in international security and a Pacific diplomacy expert, the article says, at New Zealand's Massey University, said the draft agreement was very significant. And when I initially read this article, I thought the same. This is quite significant, making these moves during this time of global instability, obviously around the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Security agreement is one of the first of its kind in the Pacific. Its scope is broad and suitability vague, and its provisions range from maintaining public order through to protecting Chinese citizens and assets and providing humanitarian and disaster relief, Powell said. Now, a bit of history behind that, according also to the article. In 2018, China approached Vanuatu, as I mentioned, about building a permanent military presence in the South Pacific, triggering urgent discussions at the highest levels in Canberra, Australia, and Washington, US. Thursday afternoon's draft document, first released by a Solomon's opposition advisor, sent officials in Canberra scrambling to verify its authenticity. The Sydney Morning Herald and The Age confirmed on Thursday evening that the Australian government believes the document is genuine, deepening concerns in Canberra and Washington about China's intentions in the Pacific. And again, that's initially what I felt when I read this article. The base will increase the risk of confrontation between US and China as Beijing ramps up its competition with Washington, threatens Taiwan's airspace, and refuses to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So just more instability, at least that's how it reads from where I sit. Once again, reported on stuff, so take that as you will and maybe do some of your own investigation, but definitely worth a look. Also, finally, on stuff, there was a great article, which I'm really stoked that they are actually posting or publishing these articles, and it's from John Bishop from the New Zealand Taxpayers Union. Those of you out there will be familiar with those guys. They are doing great work, advocacy work around providing an alternative to the current narrative as we're trying to do here. Now, the article by John Bishop from the New Zealand Taxpayers Union is around the Radio New Zealand and TVNZ merger that's been announced. It's questioning its potential impartiality. Read, it's not very. He goes over history of state broadcasting mergers and various levels of censorship that occurred during those times. Really, absolutely worth a read. I'll chuck a link for these articles in the description of this video. Moving along to some alt media. Now, the BFD has been doing some great work for some time. Had a look over there, and there was a great breakdown of the second round of the Public Interest Journalism Fund payouts. So that's the funding for 110 roles throughout New Zealand. Check out this map there, you'll see where they're looking to allocate them. Now, these roles have a specific mandate to produce stories that keep New Zealanders informed and engaged and support a healthy democracy. So keeping New Zealanders informed and engaged based on the mandate of the Public Interest Journalism Fund. So you're probably aware of my thoughts of the Public Interest Journalism Fund and the effect on New Zealand media bias. So 110 roles with that mandate in place. Don't know what's going to come out of that, but there's a great breakdown in this article in the BFD. All roles are funded for 2 years unless otherwise stated. Some of the highlights of these roles, because they are spread out across the country: 20 community and Paotiaki roles, 4 Stuff publications, that's up to 2.8 million allocated there for 2 years. Radio New Zealand gets 20 local democracy reporting roles for 26 different publications and platforms. That's up to 3.5 mil, so that's quite a significant chunk there. I mean, for such a small country, before we go into further ones there, it does really make me think, do we need this much coverage? I don't know. I'd have to go in and do a bit of investigation around the actual number of journalists per population head in other countries. Probably quite an interesting exercise to do. But 20 additional community roles there for Radio New Zealand, 24 Stuff. Seems like a lot as we continue through the rest of the 110 roles. The spin-off got a couple of roles for $430,000, just under. Newsroom got 4 roles. So that's interesting. 1 shared role with Newsroom and North and South. Every New Zealand, or the owner of News Hub, 3 roles for News Hub. That's up to $695,000, and no independent media outlets got any money at all, as you would expect. Moving on though, worth a look. As I say, I'll chuck the link for that down in the description. Let's have a look at Newsroom. These guys were brought to my attention when they did do the interview with the 3 lovely ladies from Voices of Freedom, the 3 founders, at the Wellington protest. Published an interesting article there. Now, it is really based around commentary from one particular employment advocate who specifically works with people that have lost their jobs due to vaccine mandates. But the headline is, employers need to bridge gap between jabbed and non-jabbed staff, as per this advocate. Now, I just thought this was a great one to pick apart. It does drive some interesting anecdotal evidence into the conversation around the feelings on both sides of the fence from this person and the people that she's advocating for. Ashley Feckney, I hope I pronounced that right. I probably butchered it, but Ashley Feckney stating people who have been away from work due to their vaccination status are easily identified as choosing not to be vaccinated. That's a fair statement. And Feckney has heard many stories from unvaccinated employees about how they've been subjected to backhanded and inappropriate comments from their vaccinated peers. As I say, anecdotal evidence, but interesting to hear. There have been vaccinated employees also who've told their employers, I will resign if I have to work with someone who isn't vaccinated. I would love to have a conversation with that person and ask them what their scientific basis is for that. This places the employer in a precarious position. Well, yeah, because it then comes down to a relationship problem rather than a strict health and safety issue. It's a damned if I do, damned if I don't scenario, according to Ashley. Russell McVie, they also spoke to an employment lawyer from Russell McVie. Her name is Kylie Dunn, and she said if an unvaccinated employee had their employment terminated, an employer doesn't have to hire them back and the worker doesn't have a right to return. So the damage continues from where I sit. I would have thought, I guess from a company's perspective, I can understand how they wouldn't have an automatic policy to take them back. But you would at least think that there would be some informal conversations happening and that those unvaccinated previously valued employees would be contacted quick, smart, and offered their jobs back. I'm sure there are public or private businesses, out there that are doing that. But it's interesting to hear that that's obviously clearly not their right to have to do so. So it may not change very much, Kylie Dunn says. She goes on to say, and it's just saying there won't be a mandate going forward. It won't be undoing the work of the mandates that were in place previously and up to April 4. So that is us. Bit of a roundup for you. Hope you have enjoyed that. I will continue to pick through some of these on the quieter days for me and chuck together these roundups if you've enjoyed them. Comment down below and let me know if you have. I've enjoyed putting it together. At any rate, though, trial and error, as we say on this channel. Let us know what you're thinking. For now, team, stay safe, stay free, and we'll see you again real soon.